morning. So we were discussing cost center planning. Okay. So in case of activity independent planning, okay. In case of activity independent planning, for example, we have salaries, bonus, PF, gratuity, depreciation and repairs. This is the expenditure we planned, okay, and output planning, this is input planning, okay. This is input planning, in which transaction code? Input planning KP 06, KP 06, okay, and output planning, which transaction code? KP 26, okay. In KP 26 we planned labor hours, (2,400), machine hours 1,200, okay. So now we need to calculate labor hour rate, machine hour rate. We need to finally calculate the labor rate. Labor rate, machine rate. So labor rate, if you want to calculate the labor rate, what is the formula? Total cost. Total cost means total cost related to labor. Normally we should get total cost related to labor and total cost related to machine. Total cost related to labor divided by number of labor hours. Okay, this is the formula. So here we have number of labor hours, we have number of labor hours, we have number of machine hours. But how do you find total cost related to labor? For this we need to do the splitting, cost center splitting. We need to do cost center splitting. The cost whatever we have in the cost center, whatever cost that we have in the cost center, this has to be splitted to labor cost and machine cost. Labor cost and machine cost. So cost center splitting, when we do the cost center splitting, this cost will be splitted to labor and machine. But here we don't have, there is no link between the cost element and activity type. System cannot identify whether this cost element is related to labor or machine. Okay, what it will do when we do the splitting, it will distribute equally to all activity types whatever you have in the cost center. How many cost centers we have here? Activity types. We have 2 activity types. So system will distribute this 2,23,200 to 2 activity types equally. For example, if you have one more activity type, cleaning. For example, cleaning activity type, it is again 1000. ఇప్పుడు ఏం చేస్తుందండి? This divided by 3. Okay, this cost will be distributed equally to all activity types. So ఇప్పుడు what we need, total cost related to labor. మనకు కావాల్సింది total cost related to labor. So when we do the cost center splitting, we'll get total cost related to labor. So this divided by 2. Okay, and total cost related to machine, same formula. Okay, so when we do cost center splitting, this will happen. And then here when we do KSPA, this is KSS4 or KSS2, and this is price calculation, KSPI. Okay, any doubts? Is that so first we did this. Now dependent planning. In case of dependent planning, we do the activity dependent planning. Okay, dependent planning. When we do the planning, input planning, we also need to assign the activity type. A activity type to related is. Okay, so what we did, we assigned labor, cost element and amount. We are given labor, cost element, amount. Okay, ఇది లేబర్ అసైన్ చేసాం, దీనికి లేబర్ అసైన్ చేసాం, దీనికి లేబర్ అండ్ మిషన్. Okay, and KP26 planning as usual. But when we do the, if it is dependent planning, first we need to do output planning, then input planning. Okay, so this is same as usual. And KSS4, when we do the KSS4, how system will distribute this formula? What is the formula?
Total cost will be number of hours related to that particular activity.
So what is the cost? ఏమేమి తీసుకుంటున్నాం? 1,20,000 plus 6,000 plus 6,000 plus 1,200 divided by 2,400. Sorry, 2,400. First cost. Let us find out the cost related to cost center splitting. When we do the cost center splitting, 1,33,200 will be taken for labor. Okay, and machine cost 60,000 plus 30,000, 90,000 total. Okay, this splitting will happen for each activity type. And when we do the KSPI, here total cost divided by number of labor hours means total cost divided by number of labor hours, and here total cost divided by machine hours. Okay, but here total cost divided by number of labor hours, machine cost divided by machine hours, 93. Same planning. This is same whatever expenditure that we have given in the cost center, same. ఇక్కడ ఎంత అయితే ఇచ్చామో 2,23,200, here also 2,23,200. But if you see the price is different. Here labor is, it is calculating 46.50, but here it is 55.50, and here it is 93, here it is 75 mission rate. Okay, so but if you analyze this is correct price, 55.50, 75.750, because the cost here machine related machine cost we have 1,11,600. Okay, 1,11,600. But if you see the cost elements in this cost center, we have only 90,000 related to machine cost. Okay, but it is taking 1,11,600. Because of that, we are getting wrong price. Okay, so note చేసుకుంటారా? Yeah, note చేసుకుంటారు. అర్థమయ్యాయండి? If you want me to repeat, I will repeat again.
This technique is calculation. Case is 4 like 11600 and that is
Yeah.
cost related to labor and related to machine. The total calculation.
Yeah. See, we did the input planning. This is input planning, cost element wise planning, and here we did output planning. When we do the input planning, how system identifies this cost element is related to this activity type. System కి ఎలా తెలుస్తుంది? Okay, it cannot identify this 1,20,000 is to be distributed to labor, this depreciation is to be distributed to machine. It cannot identify because there is no link between cost element and activity type. There is no link between cost element and activity type. So what it will do is, when we run cost center splitting, system will take entire cost, whatever cost that we have in the cost center, and it will distribute equally to all the activity types. It will distribute all activity types. Okay, what is the total cost? 2,23,200 divided by how many activities you have in output planning. Any activity types ఉన్నాయి output planning లో? 2 activity types ఉన్నాయి. Okay, 2,23,200 divided by 2. 2,23,200 divided by 2. So if you see the planning, if you analyze this, activity dependent planning will get the correct price. Activity dependent planning will get the correct price, because when we do the cost center splitting, we'll get the cost related to that particular activity. We'll get the cost related to that particular activity. How we get is, when we do the input planning, we plan the cost element planning with respect to activity type. Activity type ni kuda consider chestam. So when we do the planning, when we do the splitting, system knows this salaries is related to labor activity, bonus is related to labor activity, and depreciation is related to machine activity. System can understand that. That is the reason we'll get different cost. That cost is related to only that particular activity. Okay, so because of that, we'll get the correct price. Okay, next, but we'll get the correct price in activity dependent planning, but no company is using activity dependent planning. Okay, in real time, no company will use activity dependent planning. Why? What is the reason? For example, let's see, we have in one cost center, okay, in one cost center we have same, let us assume same, okay, and output planning is okay, KP26, this is KP06. First I need to do output planning. For example, labor 2400 hours, okay, machine 1200. I also have one more activity, cleaning, okay, assume 600. Okay, now I need to so if it is activity dependent planning, activity dependent planning, so in case of activity dependent planning, the expenditure, I need to plan the expenditure with respect to activity type. Now this salaries is related to not only for labor, this is also related to cleaning ki kontamandi labor unnaru, vallaku kuda pay chestunnam. Okay, so this salaries cost is related to two activity types. Ippudu ela plan chestaru? How do you need to plan? You need to split the salaries, labor, okay, labor salaries, for example, it is 40,000, okay, and labor salaries again how much, 80,000. అర్థమవుతుందండి? It is related to ఇదేంటండి, cleaning activity type. 1,20,000 related to two activity types, labor and cleaning. So when we do the KP06 input planning, we need to split that cost, whatever cost that we are planning, we need to split that into two activity types, two line items. Okay, and do the planning. Same bonus, okay, bonus again, bonus, labor, cleaning. For example, this is 2,000 and this is 4,000. You need to plan like this. Assume that you have 100 expenditure line items, 100 cost elements in one cost center, and you have 4 or 5 activity types. 4 activity types ఉన్నాయి అనుకోండి, 100 cost elements and 4 activity types. So how many line items you need to plan? And typing is it's not difficult. We can keep someone and we can plan. But planning, how do they plan with respect to activity type? Planning is very difficult. Okay, for each activity type, salaries for each activity type, it is very difficult to plan. So that is the reason no one will use activity dependent planning. No one will use activity dependent planning. Everyone will use activity independent planning. But if you go for activity independent planning, we are not getting correct price. Correct price రావట్లేదు మనకి. ఓకే, ఇది అర్థమైందండి? అర్థమైందా ఇది? Why don't we use activity dependent planning? Because one cost element might have different activity types, multiple activity types. One cost element can have multiple activity types. One cost element can have multiple activity types. Okay, that is the reason we cannot use activity dependent planning, because it is very difficult to plan cost element and activity type wise. Okay, so it's not just one first activity dependent is not just gonna sorry activity not a regular practice. Did you understand or do you want me to repeat it? And one more thing, once we do KSPI అనేది price calculation, okay, when we post KSPI, system will update the price in KP26 లో price update చేస్తుంది. We did output planning, right? So there it will update price. Okay, అది మర్చిపోయాను నేను చెప్పకుండా. సో KSPI కింద నోట్ చేసుకోండి, it will update the price in KP26. KSPI ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ చేశారు కదా, దాని కింద it will update the price in KP26. నిన్న KP26 ఇది నోట్ చేసుకున్నారా? KP26, zero 1 12 2018 ప్రెస్ షాప్కి చూద్దాం. మనం ఇది మాత్రం ప్లాన్ చేసాము 2400 1200 system. When we do the KSBI, system updated the price here. Okay, KP26 కింద KSBI క్యాలిక్యులేట్ చేస్తూనే ప్రైస్ ఇక్కడ అప్డేట్ చేస్తుంది KP26. ఓకే, అక్కడ నోట్ చేసుకోండి. KSBI కింద నోట్ చేసుకోండి. ప్రైస్ విల్ గెట్ అప్డేట్ ఇన్ KP26. ప్రైస్ విల్ గెట్ అప్డేట్ ఇన్ KP26. Okay. Huh? So what is the drawback in activity independent planning? System cannot identify the related activity types. For each cost element, system cannot identify the activity type. Because of that, it is distributing equally to all activity types. Okay, activity independent planning law, that is the drawback. System is not able to identify the activity type for each cost element, because when we do the input planning, we are not giving any activity type. Okay, so system is not able to understand for which activity type this cost element related to. That is the reason it is distributing to all activity types equally. Okay, that is the drawback. To overcome the drawback, we have splitting structure. We cannot use activity dependent planning. Activity dependent planning we are not able to use. Activity independent planning, we need to use activity independent planning. But in activity independent planning, we have that drawback. We are not getting correct price. We are not getting correct price. So to overcome that drawback, we have got one functionality called splitting structure. Splitting structure. So what is the issue in here activity independent planning? System is not able to identify the activity types. So what we do is, we'll create one splitting structure. Okay, splitting structure. We'll create one splitting structure. Just listen. Splitting structure. For example, R1. Okay. In R1 kinda, what we do is, we will take the cost elements, all cost elements. Okay, we'll take all cost elements, whatever cost elements we have, or we'll just group this. దీన్ని ఒక లేబర్ అనే కాస్ట్ ఎలిమెంట్గా గ్రూప్ చేసి ఆ గ్రూప్ని తీసుకుంటాం. ఓకే, అండ్ మిషన్ అనే ఒక గ్రూప్ని తీసుకుంటాం. సో విల్ టేక్ ఆల్ కాస్ట్ ఎలిమెంట్స్ అండ్ వీ విల్ లింక్ ద యాక్టివిటీ టైప్స్. అండ్ దిస్ ఈజ్ వన్ టైమ్ యాక్టివిటీ. ఫస్ట్ కాన్ఫిగరేషన్ అప్పుడు వీ విల్ లింక్ ఆల్ కాస్ట్ ఎలిమెంట్స్ టు యాక్టివిటీ టైప్స్. అర్థమవుతుందా? ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ సాలరీస్, లేబర్, this labor and depreciation, machine. ఓకే, లింక్ చేసి ఈ R1 ని కాస్ట్ సెంటర్కి అసైన్ చేస్తాం. R1 ని కాస్ట్ సెంటర్కి అసైన్ చేస్తాం. దిస్ ఈజ్ కాన్ఫిగరేషన్. ఓకే, అసైన్ R1 splitting structure to cost center. Okay, and when we do the price calculation, when we do the price calculation, total cost related to labor, how it will be when we do the splitting, it will consider this splitting structure. This splitting structure ni consider chesi, it will take the cost related to only that labor. ఇక్కడ లింక్ ఉంది కదా కాస్ట్ ఎలిమెంట్కి దీనికి. ఓకే, సో ఇట్ విల్ టేక్ ద ప్రైస్ లైక్ దిస్, కాస్ట్ లైక్ దిస్. ఇంప్లిమెంటేషన్ అప్పుడే ఇది క్రియేట్ చేసి అసైన్ చేసి పెట్టేస్తాం. ఓకే, వీ విల్ నాట్ డూ దిస్ ఎవరీ ఇయర్. ఇట్ ఈస్ వన్ టైమ్ యాక్టివిటీ. It is just one time activity. Splitting structure is one time activity. We will create it once. In future, if you create any GL accounts, if you create any cost elements, you may need to change it. Otherwise, it is not required to change it. Okay, plus this plus this plus this. Okay, we will get 1 lakh, that because we have the link here, splitting structure law, and then we will get the correct price. Same whatever we had in activity dependent planning, లో ఎంత ప్రైస్ వస్తుందో ఇక్కడ కూడా అంతే ప్రైస్ వస్తుంది, 55.5075. okay, this is splitting structure is one time activity, but the issue here is what is the issue? Yeah, we need to change it. That is one issue. Yeah, multiple activities types. Salaries, if this salaries is related to multiple activity types. Okay, if this salaries is related to multiple activity types, what we do in splitting structure, we will assign both activity types. We can assign both activity types. రెండింటికి అసైన్ చేస్తాం. ఓకే, సపోజ్ క్లీనింగ్ కూడా రిలేటెడ్ అనుకోండి, క్లీనింగ్ కూడా అసైన్ చేస్తాం. ప్లస్ ఓకే, క్లీనింగ్ ఇలా అసైన్ చేస్తాం. సో ఇట్ విల్ డిస్ట్రిబ్యూట్ ఈక్వల్లీ. 1,20,000 ప్లాన్ చేసామనుకోండి, లేబర్కి 60,000 డిస్ట్రిబ్యూట్ చేస్తుంది, మిషన్కి 60,000 డిస్ట్రిబ్యూట్ చేస్తుంది. ఆర్ బేస్డ్ ఆన్ ద యాక్టివిటీస్. ఓకే, దట్ వీ కెన్ కాన్ఫిగర్ ఇన్ సిస్టమ్. విల్ డిస్కస్ దట్ ఇన్ స్ప్లిట్టింగ్ స్ట్రక్చర్. ఓకే, బేస్డ్ ఆన్ ద యాక్టివిటీస్ it will distribute to the activities. Based on the activity quantity it will distribute. అర్థమైందండి ఇది? One cost element is related to multiple activity types. If one cost element is related to multiple activity types, okay, then we need to assign both the activity types in the cost splitting structure. First, ఇది అర్థమైందా మీకు? ఇది అర్థమైందా? We are not getting correct price in activity independent planning. We are not getting correct price. That is the reason we are using splitting structure. Okay, so in splitting structure, we will create one splitting structure and assign this splitting structure to cost center. What is inside this splitting structure is we have the assignment of cost elements to respective activity types. But the issue here is, if one cost element is related to multiple activity types, then we need to assign both the activity types. Whatever multiple cost elements, whatever activity types it has, we need to assign all activity types. Okay, so how it will distribute, we will discuss later. Suppose we will plan 1,20,000. Ikkada salaries 1,20,000. We planned 1,20,000, right? Suppose I assigned salaries is related to labor and machine. Note చేసుకుంటారు. Activity independent planning with the splitting structure. కేసెస్ 4 సేమ్. బట్ కేసెస్ 4 చేసినప్పుడు ఇది కాన్ఫిగరేషన్ అక్కడ కాదు. కాన్ఫిగరేషన్ ఎస్బీఆర్ఓలో ఉంటుంది. కాన్ఫిగరేషన్ ఎస్బీఆర్ఓలోకి వెళ్ళి అక్కడ ఓకేఈ ఓఎన్ ఓకేఈ ఓడబ్ల్యూ ఏదో ఒక ట్రాన్సాక్షన్ కోడ్. ఓకే, అక్కడ చేసి అక్కడే అసైన్ చేస్తాం కాన్ఫిగరేషన్లోనే. దట్ ఈస్ కాన్ఫిగరేషన్, దట్ ఈస్ పార్ట్ ఆఫ్ కాన్ఫిగరేషన్. బట్ కేఎస్ఎస్ 4 చేసినప్పుడు ఆ స్ప్లిట్టింగ్ స్ట్రక్చర్, ఎస్బీఆర్ఓలో ఉన్న స్ప్లిట్టింగ్ స్ట్రక్చర్ని కన్సిడర్ చేసి స్ప్లిట్ చేస్తుంది కాస్ట్ని. ఈక్వల్ కాదు, మనం బేస్ ఇస్తాం అక్కడ. ఏ బేస్ మీద స్ప్లిట్ చేయాలి అనేది చెప్తాను నేను. So for example, this one cost element is related to multiple activity types. Okay, one cost element is related to multiple activity types. In this case, how it has to distribute the cost? For example, let's see, we do the input planning, output planning, we also have cleaning. Okay, cleaning hours, for example 600. Okay, salaries, now we did the output planning. This is the output planning in one particular cost center, and input planning, KP input planning, we have salaries, okay, 1,20,000. This 1,20,000 is related to labor and cleaning, labor and cleaning. So splitting structure lo em chestamante manam, we will assign both, okay. For salaries cost element, we will assign labor plus cleaning, రెండు అసైన్ చేస్తాం, లేబర్ ప్లస్ క్లీనింగ్. ఇప్పుడు ఈ 1,20,000 ని ఎలా బైఫర్కేట్ చేయాలి, ఎలా డిస్ట్రిబ్యూట్ చేయాలి, సిస్టమ్కి తెలియదు, ఓకే. ఎలా డిస్ట్రిబ్యూట్ చేయాలి అంటే ఇక్కడ వి విల్ గివ్ ద బేస్. బేస్ ఏమని ఇస్తామంటే యాక్టివిటీ క్వాంటిటీ, యాక్టివిటీ క్వాంటిటీ అని ఇస్తాం బేస్, ఓకే. దీనికి salaries is related to labor and cleaning, and the base to distribute the cost is activity quantity. ఇప్పుడు 1,20,000 ని ఎలా లేబర్కి ఎలా ఎంత వస్తుంది, క్లీనింగ్ ఎంత వస్తుంది, ఎంత వస్తుంది లేబర్కి? 1,23,000 divided by 3,000 into 2,400. 1,20,000 divided by 3,000 into 600. అర్థమైందా? బేస్డ్ ఆన్ ద యాక్టివిటీ, బేస్డ్ ఆన్ ద యాక్టివిటీ క్వాంటిటీ. యాక్టివిటీ క్వాంటిటీ ఏంటి ఇది, ఓకే. So 1,20,000 will be distributed to 2 activity types based on its quantity. So total 2,400 plus 600, 3,600, 3,000 into labor activity types are 2,400. So total cost 3,000 activity, 3,000 quantity ki inta cost 1,20,000. For 3,000 quantity total 3,000 kada, 2,400 plus 600. For 3,000 quantity 1,20,000 is the cost. So for 2,400 quantity how much, okay, 96,000. And here 3,000 into 600, total cost divided by 3,000 into 600, okay. This is how system will distribute the cost if you have splitting structure. Andukane this is the reason we follow activity independent planning with the help of splitting structure. Splitting structure కూడా క్రియేట్ చేసి పెట్టుకుంటాం, ఓకే. సో we may not get exact price, ఇక్కడ కూడా ఎగ్జాక్ట్ ప్రైస్ రాకపోవచ్చు, బట్ అప్రాక్సిమేట్గా కరెక్ట్, అంటే అటు ఇటు ఒక ప్రైస్, కరెక్ట్ ప్రైస్ వస్తుంది, ఓకే. సో ఇది నోట్ చేసుకోండి. ఇఫ్ వన్ కాస్ట్ ఎలిమెంట్ ఫార్ములా కావాలంటే నేను చూస్తాను. 1,20,000 divided by 3,000 into 2,400. Next class we'll create splitting structure and do the planning again. Okay. So you need to practice it first before we go for splitting structure. You need to practice it. So practice cheyandi. Steps is very easy. Planning, calculating price is very easy. Only 4 transaction code: KP06, KP26, KSS4, KSPI. Ante. But CO on the analysis is important. So ఎందుకు చేస్తున్నాము, why are we using it, why are we doing that, cost activity dependent ఎందుకు, activity independent. So analysis is important. So splitting structure again we'll discuss in next class. So before that please do the practice. ఇది యాక్టివిటీ డిపెండెంట్ ప్లానింగ్, ఇండిపెండెంట్ ప్లానింగ్ ముందు వితౌట్ స్ప్లిట్టింగ్ స్ట్రక్చర్ అర్థం అవ్వకపోతే అది అర్థం అవుతుంది అసలు. ఓకే, we'll stop it. రెసిపీ తీసుకున్నావా, తెచ్చావా? వేపించుకో, మళ్ళీ నీకు ఏదైనా డౌట్ వస్తే నాకు ఫోన్ చేయి. ప్రాక్టీస్ చేయి మొత్తం ఈ వీకెండ్లో మొత్తం అంత కంప్లీట్ చేయి ఫస్ట్ నుంచి. ఇప్పుడు కొత్త కంపెనీ కూడా క్రియేట్ చేసావా? చేస్తుంటే అది అట్నే చేయి. నీకు ఎప్పుడైనా టైం దొరికితే మళ్ళీ ఫస్ట్ నుంచి ఇంకో కొత్త కంపెనీ కూడా